Hello and welcome to the latest Q&A from Crushing Doubt. I say it's every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, but today it's not. Today is a special one. It's on Tuesday, of course, right now. So thanks for rolling with me. Hopefully you guys got the message about the different times. Next week, we'll be back on schedule. The usual Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and we'll keep right on rolling with that. I don't anticipate being out any Monday for a good long time. So let's do a couple of announcements, but I do see that Michelle has joined us and Lucy Oden has joined us. And we're going to get to a preloaded question if we have time, but put your questions in the chat on YouTube, Facebook, or on Instagram, and we'll jump in from there. A couple of announcements to make. First of all, we have a couple of new things coming up, and one of them is that the audio podcast is now going to be moving to a membership. It's going to be $5.99 a month, but it is going to have new episodes. This will help us to fund the efforts to make these new episodes, so please join me there. The old episodes can still be gotten on Apple Podcasts, but the new ones, I will bring you information. Actually, if you want to sign up for the newsletter on our website, I can get you that information right away. In addition, we do have our new streaming network that's going to be up and running. It's called Sapphire Network. There was a different name we were considering at one point, but Sapphire Network, we will give you information on how that's going to be, how you'll sign up for that, and that sort of thing. And that will continue the video podcast. The old video podcasts will all be available on YouTube, and we'll still have a presence on YouTube, including this Q&A every week. So thanks so much for joining me. We have new seminars will be coming in April. We've got our group memberships going, so we have lots of ways to help people, and I am here to answer all of your questions. How to Heal Chronic Pain has joined us. I believe that's Scotty. Try to keep track of the names here. Good to see you all. Let's bring up a preloaded question while we have time. Okay. This one is from Brendan. And the question is this: what is the difference between a trigger and a conditioned response? All right. That is a great question. And as I think about it, here's what I'd say. This is often the case. I'll have a short answer and then I'll have a long answer, but I'll give you the short answer first, of course. So the short answer is this: a conditioned response is a thing that you just expect all the time. It's a pattern that you see. So a conditioned response when it comes to pain or symptoms is when this situation happens, this happens. It could be when I wake up in the morning, I have this symptom. It could be when I do this movement, I have this symptom. It could be that when this symptom happens, I get this symptom later. Whatever your associations are, those are conditioned responses. A trigger I see as a form of a conditioned response, but it's a specific thing. A trigger is something where you are going to decide to, well, actually, this is not true. I was going to say something, but back up. Beep, beep. The reality is a trigger is something from the outside environment that leads to a conditioned response. But there's two forms of triggers. There's ones that just kind of happen to you, and then there's ones where you decide to take it on. So a trigger is something where we can recognize there's an active belief system, that conditioned response kind of thing, but it's something we can now do something about. Once it's recognized as a trigger, you're outside of the loop of a conditioned response where it just happens. A trigger, in other words, is a way of thinking about a conditioned response that sets you free from being stuck in it. Instead, it gives you a chance to say, when this happens because of a belief system. Now I can challenge that belief system. So I would say that a trigger is a form of a conditioned response, but in some ways it's a more evolved version of it, because now you have a chance to do something about it. You have a chance to recognize that the way you were thinking about it was leading to that conditioned response. Now you've got something different you can do about it. Okay, we've got a couple people saying hi on YouTube. Dorisa, good to see you again. And Patty, good to see you. All right, we have a question on first of all, Scotty has this question. Hello, new time for Q&A. No, this is a special Q&A. I was out yesterday. I was traveling, and for the first time in 2 years, actually. And so I wasn't here on the Monday, but I wanted to make sure to give one this week. It's the same time usually. Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Now we have a question from Michelle. Good to see you here, Michelle. She said, can we talk about competitiveness? Isn't this just a trauma response? And then how do I continue to address it? It's very ingrained in my personality. Now you do have a second part. And then you said, it's so ironic that this came up today as I was talking with my therapist about it last week. Okay, so this did come up in the group. I had some symptoms over this past week, and I realized, interestingly, that they were about competitiveness. And Michelle really nails it here. It is a trauma response. So a trauma response happens, and it leads to competitiveness because who are we essentially competing with? We're competing with ourselves. We want to beat that trauma. We want to show that we are worth it, that all those people who said we weren't, or those experiences that said we weren't worth it, or that said we were bad, we want to win. That's where competitiveness comes from. It does. Competitiveness in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it can be a great thing. It's channeled aggression. But I do think especially when it's going awry, it is a trauma response. It is the opposite of gentleness with ourselves. When we're responding to our trauma by saying, I've been through enough. I don't need to win anymore. I win just by being. I don't need to go further than that. That's part of what we want to do with competitiveness. So, Michelle, you're saying it's ingrained in your personality, and I totally get it. It's ingrained in mine. I am competitive. What I do, though, is I try to find ways to channel it so that I use it for the good parts, and I can set it down for the not as good parts. And when I set it down, and this is something that I continue to learn about, but I learned this week, that sometimes I need to set it down because I'm not being gentle with myself. Sometimes that competition isn't just for good. I sometimes get confused because I think, I'm just channeling my aggression. I'm trying to do good things with this stuff. But it can easily cross over into what is essentially self-hatred. I'm not good enough, and now I need to prove it. And if I fail, it's proof that I'm not good enough. If you recognize it's gotten into that territory, that's different than competition. That's the trauma response. And so maybe a good way of saying it is that competitiveness can be a trauma response, but it can also be used outside of a trauma response. I think it in general is a trauma response. But when we double down on it and we kind of say to ourselves, if I don't succeed here, I am a failure. It is proof that I'm not good enough. Then it threatens that sense of the core narrative work that we do, where we try to find value in ourselves, to understand ourselves. The opposite of competitiveness is self-empathy. It's recognizing I don't have to win here. I don't even have to compete. You can step outside of that. So when you say it's ingrained in your personality, Michelle, I would say it this way. It probably is ingrained in your personality to kind of be naturally competitive, but you can still develop the ability to set down that competition when you realize that it's become something else. It's not just about wanting to win now. It's about wanting to prove your worth. And if it's about that, you don't need to compete to prove your worth. You already are worth it. And me saying that doesn't necessarily make you believe it, but you saying it and believing it could make you believe it. And so let's explore that more. But that's the basic idea. There is a way to set down the competition in a certain set of circumstances when you recognize it is crossed over into trying to undo all of that trauma or beat it, and the stakes just get way too high. That's what happens for me. Michelle, let me know if I answered your question well. Pink Blue Bonnet, it is good to see you here. Thanks for joining us. Quilt Hollow as well. Dupuis Sadie, I don't know if I'm saying it right, joined. Good to see you. And Michelle says, it's about proving my worth. It really is. In a way, the fact that we are as competitive as we are could, and I don't mean this is a bad thing, but it could make us really sad. Because what it means is we don't think we're worth it. We think we have to compete to be worth it. And I would rather have some channeled aggression where we can enjoy the competitiveness, but not have the stakes be so high, being about proving our worth. So I like to be able to set down that competition and say, I don't need to prove my worth anymore. I'm already worth it. And actually believe it. That's the thing to work at. Okay, Positively Whitney, thank you for joining us. And you saying hello, so good to see you. And Ray DeLand has also joined us. So hopefully I'm saying these names right. I apologize if not. Okay, Bob has a question coming in on YouTube. He says, observation. Some of the symptoms are short-term, usually goes away when fear of symptoms goes away. My long-term back, neck, shoulder pain is different because has no fear, but won't go away. Any thoughts? Okay, let's leave this up here. A lot of times there's kind of multiple parts in here that I think are important to tease out. So first of all, let's highlight what Bob is saying here. And Bob, of course, chime in if I have it wrong. But the basic idea is you're saying, why are some symptoms different than others? You know, why are some ones that bring a lot of fear, and then that goes away when the symptom goes away, whereas others are just kind of stuck there? I'm going to answer the second part of your question first. These long-term symptoms that you have no fear of but won't go away, to me, that is a doubt. Now remember, doubt has 4 different components to it. There's questions, there's confusion, there's the simple, not being certain, lack of certainty, and then there's fear. What you're saying is, I don't have fear in this. But remember, doubt has 3 other forms to take: questions, confusion, and lack of certainty. And so I think that each symptom operates in the way that it needs to. It will push on the part of doubt that's going to work. Sometimes that's going to take the form of fear. Sometimes the symptom isn't going to be able to stay with you unless you're afraid of it. And that's when fear is going to come in. Other times a symptom like the long-term back, neck, shoulder pain that you're having doesn't go away even without fear because of these other things. But what I found is that it's kind of a handy reference point to know that there's just 4 forms of doubt. I'll say them again: questions, confusion, lack of certainty, and fear. All it takes is one of these, let alone more than one, for there to be symptoms that linger. So, Bob, I would look at each part. Now, remember, in the doubt column, we observe, articulate, and then counter. So what we're doing here is actually, I would say, observing it. I don't think you've fully identified that as a doubt, this particular one. It's there in the form of a question. You're asking a question. But I want you to identify it as an actual doubt, meaning it's something that you're thinking is just kind of true. But we've got to show you or get you to start thinking about the fact that it not only might not be true, but it probably isn't true. Doubts are always not true. They always end up not being true. So take a look at this. You're saying, well, if fear was there, this would make sense. But I'm telling you, hey, doubt can operate even without fear. Let's start there. Now, you had a first part of this also. I'm going to go back and read and make sure I didn't miss anything here. Some of the symptoms of short-term usually go away when fear of the symptom goes away. So something just hit me. Bob, one of the things that each of you is going to need to do out there is to distinguish between different situations. TMS or mind-body issues, they never operate always the same. And I think we're all looking for the way that they will operate the same so that we just have our rules set and that's it. But one nice thing about the columns is they actually give you a set of rules. It's not just one rule. It's a set of rules. It's a way of organizing it. And it's not an infinite number of rules. It doesn't spill out into, ungodly numbers where you can't figure it out, you can't sort it out. It's an organized system that kind of hones it. But there are more than one answer. So this is a great example of it. Your question, why this at one time and this at another time? Because they're operating on different principles where a different problem needed to be addressed with the mind-body situation. Bob, let me know if that answers your question well enough. There's a lot in here. It's a very rich question, so thanks for asking that. All right, we have a question coming in from Instagram. Positively Whitney says, I have a question about benzo withdrawal. 6 weeks ago, I came off of benzo, and I'm wondering if you think this long after it's more mind-body symptoms. They feel worse now than they did in the beginning. Okay, so one thing I want to say is this. When it comes to benzo withdrawal, from what I know, it is really important that you have a medical doctor follow you in that because benzo withdrawal can be very dangerous in the short term. I will say this, Whitney, 6 weeks later, I would think you would be past that, but consult with a doctor. Find out what that time frame is. What I can guarantee you is you are going to come to a time frame where it's going to enter into mind-body territory. I would guess you're there, but I still want you to check with a doctor just to make sure. remember, doctors are sometimes going to say things to you that are going to completely miss the mind-body boat and could even send you into doubt a little bit. But you can come back to me about it. I'll crush the doubt. They're just there to make sure you are physically safe from anything really dangerous. I don't think you would be. After 6 weeks, I would think that you are doing much better now from a kind of purely medical standpoint. And the fact that they feel worse now than they did at the beginning, to me, is a clue that it likely is mind-body. Now, it's easy for doubt to creep in and kind of get us asking ourselves, well, isn't it possible that it just gets worse over time because of the buildup? But that's just a doubt. It doesn't actually work that way. Usually when we're getting off of any medication, it's the hardest at the beginning, and then it tapers off, and it just always goes that way. It's mathematical. It has a half-life. It leaves the body over time, so it should be getting better and better. This is making it sound like a mind-body symptom. I would check with your doctor just to be sure. But once you've done that, I would say I'm positive this has a mind-body, more than a mind-body component, but it's probably driven by that. Okay, we have a question from Instagram again. How to heal chronic pain. Scotty, you're saying, how would you explain the difference between delay onset pain from exercise versus knowing that pain is TMS from exercise as a trigger? Not logical for it to be structural with delayed onset. Okay, great question. And I actually have to read it again just to make sure I got it. How would you explain the difference between delay onset pain from exercise versus knowing that pain is TMS from exercise as a trigger? Not logical for it to be structural with delayed onset. Okay, I think I understand the question, Scotty, but follow up if I miss it. So the question essentially, I think, is this. You know, when you exercise, there can be pain that happens afterwards, or at least that's how it's often talked about. Now, from a physiological standpoint, there's something to it even. There's lactic acid buildup. The lack of oxygen to the muscles from all of that working out, from being overworked, causes lactic acid buildup. It's a chemical reaction that I actually don't know that much about. I learned about it in high school, but I don't remember it anymore. Sorry, Mr. Kulick, I've forgotten. But you did teach me well enough to basically know what I'm talking about. I just don't know the ins and outs. But Scotty's question is this. Is it the case that there is a physiological condition that is leading to that experience and that it would naturally be delayed? Or is it TMS and we are believing that that's going to happen and thus it's happening? Well, one of the ways that I've found most useful in kind of wading through these issues is to remember that there's a great thing you can do with mind-body issues, which is try it out. If you test out the idea that it's from the mind and then it works, that is always a sign that it is the mind. Now, if you test it out and it doesn't work, the corollary is not true. It does not mean it wasn't from the mind because you still might have the belief system. So Scotty's question is, how would I explain the difference? I would say that the difference, if I'm understanding the question correctly, is, you know, in one sense, it is physiologically, that's just what happens for people versus the belief system leads to that. I might be misreading your question though, Scotty. So let me know. Chime in here. Oh, wait, hold on. Did you say something about it? No, not yet. Okay. So Scotty, please chime in to make sure I got your question correctly understood. But I would say it's a big difference because it's all about the belief system. And for me, look, even when people say, oh, there's this delayed onset pain, I personally believe that mostly does not happen. There is some of that, but it's actually very minimal. And I've found that when I apply mind-body thinking, I don't have any of it. I play basketball on Tuesdays, actually, so I'm playing shortly. I never hurt much afterwards. And if I do, it's for a short period of time and I can use my mind to change that. So I have some pretty serious questions about whether delayed onset pain is something we ever actually need to deal with in any way that isn't a mind-body experience. In other words, I don't really distinguish between the two. So, all right, Scotty, hopefully that wasn't too confusing of a way of answering your question, but please let me know. Okay, Complete Lifestyle Coaching has joined us as well. Good to see you here. Positively Whitney had a follow-up. She said, yes, I went to medical detox for it. Good. Okay, so now, given that you have, And then she said, the doctor said the worst of it should be over and no risk of seizure now. Okay, bingo. This is great, Whitney. Now what it means is this is all mind body, 100%. But first of all, I want to be empathic to you about this. It's not easy. These are big, big triggers, getting off of a medication. So I want you to be gentle with yourself about it in recognizing that this is a big trigger. But I also want you to feel some confidence that you can get through this trigger. And I can help you if need be. Come to the groups. I'll walk you through it. It won't take you that long. One thing that I tell people about is with triggers, it usually takes maybe a day or two, maybe 2 or 3 days before you can get past it if you're working in the right way. You just might need some reassurance. You might need some help. If you're not getting that, you can get stuck in a loop that lasts longer. But I'd say come get the reassurance you need. I guarantee you this is mind body at this point. You've been cleared by a medical doctor. I feel totally comfortable saying this. It's even fitting with the logic of it that it's getting worse now than it was then. Doesn't make sense from a biological or physiological standpoint. This is mind body. If you work through that and you challenge it strongly, you can get to a place where the symptoms will die down. They'll go away entirely. And then you will have just proven to yourself that you have no withdrawal effects. Once you do that, you'll never have to go back. It's a big deal, but fighting through triggers is big. Brings up a lot of stuff. So let me know if you need help, Whitney, and let me know if that answers your question well. Scotty then said, as a follow-up to my question, yes, that answers my question. Thank you. The pain after exercise shouldn't really be as notable as people make it to be as structural. Absolutely. I think it's it's kind of a big trigger in society that we hand to each other. It's kind of like cold and flu season, which is actually real. But if we keep saying it, we're also giving a trigger. Now, this is the kind of trigger that we give to people all the time. Oh, you're going to be sore later. Think about the belief system that gives to people. I mean, of course they're going to be sore later. You just told them, So I find it's helpful to kind of think through what are we saying to each other. But most of all, it's important to think about what people are saying to you. We can't control other people. They're going to say what they say. But I want you to think about how can I protect myself from that? And this is a good way to do it, to recognize delayed onset pain is actually a mind-body experience in almost all circumstances. Okay, we've got a couple more questions I want to get to. I'm going to jump back to YouTube now. Charlotte Trendle, good to see you. Or is it Trendell? I never actually got the pronunciation of your name, even though we've known each other all this time. But it is great to see you here, Charlotte. Okay, Charlotte said, hi, Dan. I was making some good progress 2 weeks ago, but now I have COVID. Sorry to hear that, Charlotte. The inability to breathe from cold and cough is causing my anxiety to rocket and thus my pain. Any thoughts on how to cope with this? Okay. First of all, lots of empathy. It is very hard to have anything that is a trigger like this. And COVID is probably the biggest trigger of all right now. We have all just been through over 2 years of this, hearing about things, worrying about it. I mean, how are we supposed to not have a big trigger? One thing, though, that I can reassure you about, Charlotte, that I think should be helpful is this is mostly trigger at this point. Now, listen, I don't know all of the circumstances. If you're not vaccinated, then the COVID experience can be a lot worse from what I've heard. You aren't in the age range that would make me worried about you from a medical standpoint too much, but I assume you have talked to doctors about this as well. I think the key here is simply the panic, the trigger. And what I want to tell you, and hopefully this will be helpful, is that triggers are incredibly powerful. And I mean this as good news, because what it means is you're having a very normal response that is not dangerous. You can freak out as much as you want, and it is not going to kill you. Anxiety doesn't kill. So here's the thing. You will start to calm down if you recognize it as a trigger that is not going to stay this way. I think what's happening for you is you're feeling that this trigger is here, even though you know it, you basically know it's mind body, but you're having, I would say this is kind of level 2 doubt. You know that this is mind body in a way. Well, actually, you have COVID. So you've got some level 1 doubt too. What's what? You're loaded with doubt right now. But, COVID has a certain course. It only lasts so long. You are going to be completely fine. And the reality is triggers are very, very strong. So try not to be so worried about the strength of this, and certainly don't link it to, did you make progress or not? When you have a trigger as big as having COVID, don't think about it in terms of have you made progress or not. Think of it as, this is a difficult period. Once I'm through this period, I'll be able to get back to making progress. You were making good progress. You'll get back to it. So when you say any thoughts on how to cope with this, recognize how strong triggers are. Remind yourself that it cannot actually hurt you. Remember that it is not going to last forever. And understand that it has nothing to do with the progress you made before. You will get back to that progress. Let's check in soon. Send me an email, dan@crushingdoubt.org, and we can talk about it, and I can be of support during this time. But my heart goes out to you. I know you're going to be fine. My kids actually had COVID in December. I didn't even get COVID, and I had a trigger. So I totally know. And it was hard. I really did not like it. The idea of not being able to breathe, it's very worrisome, but you're going to be okay. Okay, it's Trendell. Got it. I will never forget now. Thanks, Charlotte. Okay, let me know if that answered your question, though, and hopefully it was of some help. Okay, Ray DeLand said, I've had migraines daily since the vaccine, Pfizer, 10 months. I'm improving, but still suffering daily, especially if stimulated. How do I banish fear about being an exception due to the newness of mRNA vaccine? Okay, first of all, that sounds incredibly difficult. And I'm so sorry you have been suffering with that. This is an example of how strong triggers are, actually. And COVID is a particularly strong trigger because we've heard so much about it. When you build up all that fear and all that information, it makes for a bigger trigger. Okay, Charlotte says she's triple jabbed. So you are 100% going to be fine, Charlotte. But this is hard, and I get it. But it's hard because it's a trigger. Try to keep that in mind. Ray, I want you to maybe think about it this way. When you say, how do I banish the fear about being an exception? The first thing I'll say to you is nobody's an exception. Listen, are there people who are super exceptions from a medical standpoint? Yes. But the reason I don't think you are here, and I wouldn't think anyone in this situation is because the mind-body situation is so strong. This is screaming mind-body situation to me. Now, that's actually good news. If you think about it, you have to compare these two different theories. One is, I happen to be an exception due to the newness of this mRNA vaccine, and it's led to this problem. And it's kind of random, and it sucks. That's the theory that you're weighing up against mind-body theory. The mind-body theory, on the other hand, says, nope, you work just like everyone else, but this has scared the crap out of you. And it scared you so much that it got you down into a symptom cycle. And how are you supposed to get rid of that without help? Well, I am that help. I am at least one of the people who can help you with this, but I specialize in doubt. So this is a symptom that looks chronic because it's every day, so it is chronic technically. But the way I think about it is consistently acute. It means it is always there, but it can be broken at any point in time. As soon as we get you that belief, you can break this cycle. And so when you say, how do I banish fear about being the exception? To me, I don't like theories that rely on randomness and don't have a good explanation, especially when I have a really good other explanation. And if I start applying it, and if you start applying this, you will find you're going to get moments of time where you'll have lesser symptoms, or it could be broken up in time some. When you start getting results, the proof is in the pudding. So let's try this out, Ray. Maybe you want to get in contact with me so we can talk about it more directly. Again, it's dan@crushingdoubt.org. But we can talk about, what's likely to be going on here and what are some steps you can take. I think it's so hard to be living in that kind of fear and pain and suffering, and we can get you out of it fast. We need a changed belief system, though, and you need the right information. And to give you the right information, I need to know what information you already have to know what I can supply. Okay, Ray, hope that helps. And I hope your name's actually Ray, since I've been saying that. Michael Dalby has joined us on Instagram. Good to have you here. And RK Steg has also joined, or RKS Teg. I don't know. All right, we have a question coming in from Dorisa. I've been having anxious thoughts recently, especially in the morning, which has been making me really tired. Any thoughts on how to deal with this? Okay. So it's not Ray, it's Rebecca. All right. Thanks, Rebecca. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm always at a loss. I try to pronounce things the right way, but who knows? Thank you for telling me. Okay, so Dorisa, let's leave this up here because I have a couple of things to say about it. So the first thing that I would say is I want you to ask yourself the question, am I treating this fatigue, being really tired, as different than other symptoms? A lot of times you're going to find that you are. That a symptom, and this is part of how doubt works, it will convince you, oh, yeah, this is all mind body, but not this one. Or maybe this one's different. So the question is, there's another Rebecca. RK Steg, also a Rebecca. Hilariously, I'm mislabeling Rebeccas everywhere. Okay, Teresa, back to you. The idea here that I would want to explore, because often when you guys ask questions, I have questions to figure out what's really happening here and how can I help you. The question I have is, are you thinking that this symptom is different? A lot of times that can happen, and fatigue is actually kind of a notorious one. Chronic fatigue syndrome, as an example, I don't believe it is a syndrome. I don't really believe in a whole lot of syndromes. I believe in the mind-body process, and I believe how powerful it is, and I believe that doubt can make it last forever if it doesn't get attacked in the right way in terms of doubt. So I would be cautious about the idea that maybe fatigue has slipped into an other category. That's something I would call level 2 doubt. Yeah, this symptom probably is actually, again, that's also a level 1 doubt, because there's a question, is it mind body at all? Now, it is, I can guarantee you it is, but how I think about it and what I say doesn't help. It's all about your belief system. Hopefully it helps to hear that I say that, but I want you to think about it and think about, are you doubting this is a mind body symptom? Now, I know Teresa well enough to know that that's not likely to be the case. She probably knows this is a mind body symptom. And that's why I said it was level 2 doubt for you, because you may be thinking, oh, this one's different. It isn't. You can become untired in an instant if you hit on the right solution. So try not to think about it any differently. So when you say any thoughts on how to deal with this, that's my first line of defense. Teresa, let's take it from there. Let me know if you need more. Okay. We have a question coming in from Facebook. All right. Lima Muhammad. How do you ditch fear when all you've known is fear of pain your whole life? That's a fantastic question and a profound one at that, because this is what you guys are dealing with all the time, or so many of you. Here's the way I would think about it, Lima. You're not going to ditch a way of thinking about things without changing something pretty major in how you're thinking. But this is another reason that I love the columns. The columns do provide a chance to understand yourself very, very differently. So you're not going to be able to ditch fear with the exact same thinking. You won't. You need to be given new thinking. And that is what the columns do. There are 3 opportunities to have different thinking. So that's my first answer. Let's do any follow-up, Lima, about this. Again, you can reach out to me at dan@crushingdoubt.org. We can interact that way. Or if you have a follow-up here, I'll get back to you. But the primary thing is, the reason you're going to be able to change this is because your thinking is going to change. You should not be expected to just ditch fear without changed thinking. That won't work. And I think that's what your question is really getting at. Okay, let me know if that helps. All right. Charlotte has a follow-up. She said, okay, cool, just a blip in the journey. Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. This is helpful. Good. And then you said, thanks, Dan. That's very sweet. But I don't know what I said that was sweet, but I'm glad it was. In any case, yes, this is just a blip in the journey, and you are making progress, which is actually the main thing. All right. Now, Thomas Roger, good to see you here, Thomas. Thomas says, with regards to delayed onset pain, What tests do you do to challenge it? I can only think of one definitive test, which is to observe the pain while static and seeing if it changes. However, not all mind-body symptoms behave like, and then there was I think you ran out of space. Okay, see if you can finish up that thought, Thomas, but I will answer this first part of the question. With regards to delayed onset pain, what tests do you do to challenge it? Okay, there's lots of ways we can go about this, but one thing you have to remember is whatever I say here is only going to work if it works for your mind. So it actually doesn't matter what I do. What I do works for me. What you do has got to work for you. So I'm going to give you what I do for me, and then we're going to see how it applies to you. It might not at all. You might have a totally different mind in this way, or it could be that I say it to you and you're like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Now, here's what I do. One thing that I have found is I've been so blown away by the extent of mind-body experience that it's almost hard for me to believe the opposite. I've seen it so many times in so many ways that the idea of delayed onset pain to me actually kind of makes me laugh, because the idea of delayed pain at all goes against what we experience. So one of the ways I would challenge this, Thomas, is with logic. When you get cut, there's not a delayed pain. Now, interestingly, there can be, from the vantage point that, you know how sometimes you look down and you have a cut and you didn't realize you had it and then it starts hurting? Okay. But once you are consciously aware, or once you're aware at all of the pain, boom, it starts. What is this delay for? Okay, the last sentence is just missing this. So let me go back and get that. He said, however, not all mind-body symptoms behave like this. Okay, yeah, I don't know why I should have been able to draw that conclusion, Thomas. Sorry about that. So the key here is to recognize there's a piece of illogic here in the delay. What's the delay for? Now, doubt's tricky, and society gives us lots of doubts and triggers. So one of the things that they might say is, well, it's because of something like lactic acid, which builds up over time. It just doesn't really ring true to me with what we know about physical processes. I understand the concept of lactic acid building up, but here's what I don't understand. Why is anybody, even one person, able to reverse these kinds of things with mind-body work? If even one person can, then it is complete garbage. That's part of the way I think about it. So it's really, I would say, Thomas, the tests that I do are really, they're not so much tests, they're more logic. You're thinking about it from a kind of science standpoint, and I totally get that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can run a test, but here's one thing you need to keep an eye out for. Sometimes there isn't a test from a scientific standpoint that's going to get it done. And if you simply take a step back and look at it from a logical standpoint, you'll realize you don't even need to run tests. However, if you're going to do an experiment, I would actually do the experiment of believing as strongly as you can that you can alter this pain profile. And if you can alter it at all, it's mind-body, and then it could go even further. And that's what I would do. Thomas, let me know if that makes sense. All right. Charlotte says to Rebecca, I don't know if this helps, but I had excruciating migraines after my vaccines. I don't normally suffer. I even went to the hospital with it. They gave me painkillers. That was her emoji, but I'm echoing it. With lots of self-assurance that it was TMS, they've now gone. Hang in there. Okay. So Charlotte, thank you for supporting Rebecca in that way. And it's really important that we do that as a community. It can be, a complete lifesaver. What Charlotte just said to Rebecca, having had the actual experience, it could open the door to Rebecca actually seeing, you know what, that actually can change. And maybe I could even do it starting today. Maybe I can make some small gains. Maybe I can make some big gains. We don't know. But if you change your mindset, things can change. Doxology has joined us on Instagram. Thank you for joining us here. And it looks like we actually have time for another preloaded question. Not usually the case that we get to two of them, but let's bring it in. This one is from Scotty, I believe. Oh, wait, hold on. We also have... Oh, very sweet was... Charlotte said, very sweet was referring to you saying I could email you and you would try to support me. Oh, sure. My pleasure. Anytime, guys. Dan@crushingdoubt.org. Okay, Scotty G says, long COVID equals chronic fatigue syndrome. TMS? What do you think? All right. Now, first of all, I want to say this. Whenever these labels come up, there are going to be some people who will listen to this and they might be kind of attached to that label. And I don't mean that critically. I just mean it might be an organizing principle of how they're thinking about things. So I do not mean to step on anyone's toes about this. I'm just trying to provide information that gets to science and logic, and we can have a respectful, debate and discussion about it that's designed to get you answers. Remember, there are A questions and B questions. A questions are designed to get you more information. B questions are designed to get you more entrenched in your doubt. Look out for that, because a lot of times these labels come along with that, where people are really believing in it and they get stuck in B questions. So, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know everything about everything. So when it comes to long COVID, for example, I especially don't necessarily know fully what goes on there because this is relatively new. However, I will say this. Long COVID has a lot of things about it that seem to be very much fully TMS, mind-body stuff. It behaves just like it. And what I would want to do is to treat it as such. The great thing about treating things in a mind-body way is it's not harmful. As long as you're not doing something that's against medical advice and puts you in medical danger, then you can go ahead and think however you want and see if it causes changes. If we're able to change them, it's a mind-body thing and it's not harmful, so it's worth trying. My very, very strong guess, I would say it's 99.999 repeating out to the 100th nine, at least, percent sure that long COVID is 100% mind-body. It even makes sense to me why it would be there. Here you have a new illness that we don't know much about, and mind-body symptoms are raging everywhere, and nobody knows about them. We have the perfect recipe for long COVID, which is another form of mind-body. Now, mind-body symptoms. Now, chronic fatigue syndrome, it does sound like long COVID takes a lot of the same format. But in my experience, and there are chronic fatigue sufferers out there who have argued with me about this or could argue with me about it, but I cannot keep from telling you what I really think because that's part of my job. Part of my job is to tell you what I really think so that the people who do have doubt out there and can use this will benefit. Chronic fatigue syndrome is mind-body 100% of the time. There is no syndrome except for the cycle that people get into with themselves that is mind-body. So in answer to Scotty's question, long COVID, very similar to chronic fatigue syndrome, and yes, all mind-body. That's what I think. Scotty, let me know if I answered your question well. And Jasper Hitchcock, good to see you here. All right, guys, we are going to wrap up very shortly. So if there are any last questions, get it in or we'll bring up a preloaded question. I'll give you a little bit of time to ask any questions. It's been fun doing this on a Tuesday. I'm not used to it. Usually it'll be on Monday. As always, it's going to be Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And I look forward to spending more time with you. I'm just thinking, do we have time for another preloaded question? I'm not sure we do. So we're going to wrap up here for today, guys. But a couple of reminders. One, as you guys are grappling with things or making gains, wherever you are in your process, I've built a system that can provide various kinds of support. Remember, the seminars are designed to get you information, the basic information to start consolidating all of your information and stop your endless search for new information. They describe why you can kind of stop your search here. It incorporates all the best stuff that I've gotten from all the other mind-body people out there, and there's a ton of them who have done such great work. I factor it in to show how it fits into one overarching system, the columns, the emotions column, the doubt column, and the power column. That's the seminars for you. Then there are the group memberships, and you can sign up for these on our website, www.crushingdoubt.org. And the memberships are designed to continue that momentum. Some people jump in with the memberships and don't even do the seminars. That's okay. That's totally fine. You can also get the seminars on video, but there's a whole system here to describe what's happening for you and get you the support you need. I'm still working on the book, taking a long time because I'm building a lot of systems, but I am 2/3 of the way through my editing and looking to get that to you as soon as possible to give you another resource. We will keep that going. And thank you so much for following me here and doing the work. I'm hearing a lot of great stuff out there, and it's really inspiring. Thomas says, thanks, Dan. My first assumption of most pain now is that it is mind-body, but my mind needs to be convinced beyond reasonable doubt that it is mind-body to fully believe it. If anyone has managed to make the delayed onset pain disappear simply by challenging it, that would be proof for me. Okay, well, I have done that, Thomas, and we can talk more about it. I've really changed my whole setup in terms of exercising and the kind of pain profile that happens there. So we'll talk about it, and I'm happy to share more on the next Q&A if people want to bring it up. Okay, Jasper says, catch you later. Good to see you here, Jasper, even if it was brief, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you again, guys. I will be here again Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, each week on the Q&A. Join me. Thanks so much.